March 2020. A terrifying time for the average individual. No matter what age, gender, or ideals you had, this time in history was something that affected everyone. Fear swept through the world's greatest nations. The place we called home told us that we, as humanity, are fickle beings, no matter how much preparation or how many minds you have on a subject. Sometimes, it just doesn't matter, and our home will become hell on earth. March 20th, 2020. Despite the calamity that was happening amongst the human race, it was a good day to be a Doom fan. Picture this: a lowly goblin getting laid off from his job because his workplace wasn't considered essential. Even though his life was turned upside down, he had something to look forward to. Doom Eternal just came out. It was the perfect time for me, the goblin, to spend all of his only slightly reluctant unemployment time to play Doom. Unfortunately, being unemployed now and trying to pay for an overpriced apartment, I had no money to buy a delicacy of a video game. I sadly had to hear about how amazing it was from a trusted friend until he finally finished the game and kindly lent it my way. But even when I had achieved the first step of borrowing the game, I came across another roadblock. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to play the damn game because as an adult goblin, you have responsibilities. Not only was I attempting to work another job, but I was balancing the social life struggles of someone who had to be quarantined because of the invisible demons in the air infecting everyone. It wasn't something I could just rip and tear my way through. It wasn't something anyone could do. Even so, I still played a crap ton of Doom Eternal, and it was able to get me through some of the hardest, most difficult times in both my own life and the rest of this current generation's lives. Fast forward to now, 5 years later at the time of recording, and we're about to get a new Doom game. The hype is real for a proletarian goblin such as myself. I have put nearly 500 plus hours total across multiple platforms in Doom Eternal, and countless more in the rest of the Doom games. But here's the thing, I am now a full-time worker. I work 2 jobs to support myself and my pathetic cat, and I just know I won't have time and energy to fully jump into this game when it comes out like I did when Doom Eternal came out. I was lucky back then. Despite the hellish reality we were all living in 2020, we had more than enough time to dive into our hobbies, new and old, but it's different now. So I'm sitting here thinking, how do I find the time to indulge in my love and passion for Doom, but also survive in the grueling society that we find ourselves in today? How can I work 2 full-time jobs and also play Doom? Wait.
Rather than throw new gameplay
Yeah, so this is where the challenge starts. To be a full-time paid gamer, I have to be bad at games. Now, I'm not about to say I'm the most skillful gamer there is. I love challenges in my games, but I'm not amazing. If a game presents a challenge, I like to overcome it. If I can't, then I can't. I don't say the game is bad like some game journalists I've seen, but yeah, the point is, if I want to be paid to do what I love doing, I have to stoop pretty low. Thus, to celebrate the coming of a new Doom game and replay one of my favorite video games of all time, I will be playing Doom Eternal like a game journalist. So here's the question. Can I beat Doom Eternal as a game journalist? Here are the rules. To capture the full experience of being a game journalist, I have to chain myself. I have to set my sensitivity level for the camera at the lowest option possible. While normally I have it set on the highest option, this is not how to play like a game reviewer. I will be playing with a base Xbox controller. No paddles, no mouse and keyboard, just this. Which, according to our father Hugo Martin, is absolutely possible. The other rule includes the IGN walkthrough of the game. I will be following every single tip, trick, guide, and step in these game reviewers' expertly crafted walkthroughs. I will not use any skills that I already know, such as quick switching or anything like that, unless it says I can do that in the walkthrough or their guides. Every tip they write will be meticulously ingrained into my brain until it becomes muscle memory. Because if I want to have the dream job of being a full-time paid gamer, where all I have to do is play a game and honestly review it, I have to follow their rules. I have to become one of them, in every sense of the word. Game journalist. Lastly, to prove that I can be a game journalist, and also overcome challenges, unlike some of them, I want to give a positive light to game journalists in some form as I go on this adventure. I want to prove that, despite the skill gap between the average gamer who has to go to their full-time jobs and tend to their social lives, who can still somehow get really quite skilled at the games they play, and the game reviewer who literally gets to play games all day, whatever they want, and get paid for it, despite the difference between us peasant gamers and the upper echelon of dream jobs, I want to prove that a game journalist can beat Doom Eternal on the hardest difficulty, Nightmare. With me trying to recreate the ideal peak gamer physique of your average IGN reviewer, this challenge will be great. It could surmount me as the best game journalist of all time. And if any of these game journalists see this video, I can become the ultimate game journalist. They'll instantly hire me and I can quit my jobs and be a full-time paid gamer. So let's get this challenge started. Can I beat Doom Eternal as a game journalist on Nightmare? Let's check it out.
Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
We must pray now. Pray that he is watching.
Please, anyone, if you can hear me, if you're out there.
Attempting to acquire the Hell Priest signal.
Nearly 60% of our planet has been consumed by the invaders.
We have the Hell Priest signal locked in. The target is marked, but the signal will not hold for long.
For it is he that they fear, not man, or his armies. They fear the mark of the beast.
Alright, hello everyone, welcome to my first challenge video. As you can see here, as soon as I boot up the first level, I go straight to the horizontal and vertical sensitivity options and bring them down to 0. And with that done, as you can see, my camera controls are so slow. I can barely move it. It always moves at a snail's pace, and I will be playing the game like this the entire time. I go through the beginning tutorial, and I pick up the chainsaw, of which the IGN walkthrough tells me that I should only use the chainsaw for smaller demons. Never any big ones, because it gives me the same amount of ammo. Which is likely true, so we'll follow that. I move on and I find a weapon mod, and I decide to pick the sticky bombs because the IGN walkthrough tells me that it's an easier option in the beginning, so that's what I do. Then I go to my first combat encounter, of which IGN says will be a very basic combat encounter with my double jump. But it tells me I shouldn't get too comfortable because it's the easiest this game will be. And they're correct about that, so I, rip and tear. Luckily enough for me, the last imp of this encounter stood completely still for me, so I could get used to my new bearings as a new game journalist gamer. And yeah, I'm very appreciative of that. So I showed it. I showed my appreciation right now. Yeah. I make a quick pit stop to the guy who reviewed Doom 2016 as 7.1 out of 10 and showed him what I felt about that and then moved on. I grabbed the second weapon mod for the combat shotgun, that weapon mod being the full auto, and went to the second encounter of the game. So now comes the interesting part. IGN says that I can use the sticky bomb to take out the turret thing on the Arachnotron, and then use the full auto to finish them off. So that's what it recommends me to do, and I do that for a couple of Arachnotrons in the beginning of the game, but I definitely stopped doing it later, but it is an interesting technique. Next is I go ahead and pick up the heavy cannon, and weirdly enough the IGN walkthrough says nothing about picking up the auto map, so I don't, and move on. Now here comes the issue that I'm worried about the most, is the wall climbing. There's a lot of platformings that need you to be able to turn your camera real fast, otherwise you'll lose out on the timing of the platforming puzzle. I had hoped that it doesn't become an issue later on in the game, but you'll see. I go ahead and pick up my next weapon mod, which will be for my heavy cannon. The IGN walkthrough tells me that I don't have to pick either one specifically, just pick one for my playstyle. So I believe that I just picked the micro missiles in this instance. Then I go ahead and pick up the frag grenade mod, of which the IGN walkthrough just says that I can use it to destroy large groups of small demons, and I can easily kill cacodemons with it, which is of course what the tutorial says as well. So yeah, I then hit the next encounter of the level, and IGN essentially just tells me that this is a very tough demon encounter, where usually I would want to leave the smaller demons alone and focus on large demons, but it tells me that the imps in this encounter can be way more annoying than anything else, so I should thin them out first before, with my micro missiles at that, of which it told me earlier that I shouldn't pick a specific mod, just pick one for my playstyle, but then it tells me to use micro missiles. The weirdest part about this is that it also tells me that this is basically the last encounter of this level, even though there's actually a few more encounters after this. It just goes straight to the point where we go to the Hell Priest, and then it ends the walkthrough. So yeah, I guess that's what we'll do. Just play the game. Thanks, IGN. So after I go through the grueling process of trying to understand my new chains, I meet up with some game journalist gods, and I tell them straight up that I am about to dethrone every single one of them and become the ultimate game journalist. The queen of game journalism tells me that I'm going too far. I'll never be able to beat Doom Eternal a nightmare as a game journalist. It's impossible. And to that, I say, 4 out of 10, mid-attempt, try again. After that epic shutdown, I go back to the Goon Cave and get told that I must find a specific item to track down the game journalist gods. So I put the address in Google Maps and got going. But first, I needed to get some upgrades. Now, the IGN walkthrough doesn't say anything about the hub area and doesn't give me any tips on what upgrade I should grab from the Sentinel Crystal. So I decided to focus on upgrading my health due to the fact that I have a very difficult time turning, so the extra health should hopefully help. I swept through the first level fairly easily, so I just immediately move on to Exultia. I meet up with one of the best dogs in the multiverse and fight the Hell Knight. IGN doesn't give me any tips on how to beat him, so I just do my best to handle the situation. I grab the Blood Punch and find a rune, of which IGN doesn't give me any tips on what rune I should pick, which I felt was weird, but I just grabbed Blood Fueled, which gives me a speed boost after I glory kill and move on. The guide tells me how to solve the next puzzle, and then I grab the Dash, which will absolutely be my saving grace for my slow geriatric ass getting ate by some thirsty demons. I grab an original prototype of the Xbox 720 to help me locate the game journalist gods, but then an old friend of mine back in the Black Ops 2 days comes out of nowhere and tells me I don't have enough gamer score to become the ultimate game journalist. Although I respect the time we had together as 13-year-old custom emblem artists, it was time for me to rise up and show IGN that I am better. As I get to the next encounter, the IGN guide tells me that this arena is here to teach me a lesson with its electrified floor. If I stop moving, I will die. I keep this in mind as I leisurely spin around the arena and do my best to shred these demons apart, and I continue to follow the walkthrough and grab the plasma rifle. IGN says it's good to get easy glory kills. Then I get to the dreaded purple goo part. I know there's quite a lot of people in the Doom community that doesn't like the purple goo, but honestly I love it. I think it adds to the wackiness of everything, and it's not nearly as challenging as people think it is, as I feel you can easily rush through these parts if you know what you're doing. IGN then helps me solve the puzzle ahead, and I get to the next encounter. Weirdly enough, IGN says that this encounter is the first time we face against a Revenant, which is not true. We faced against a Revenant back when we grabbed a plasma rifle. One of many inconsistencies in this guide. Aside from that, I push through, finish a couple more puzzles, and complete another purple sludge encounter, until finally I hit this platforming puzzle, which, due to the conditions I have set on myself, I have a hard time turning as fast as I need to land on these platforms before I fall to my death Terminator style. But eventually I get through it. I meet up with a friend who can never last long enough in the group edging sesh, and he gives me his Gooner toy to help himself stop and return to Christ. I accept his gift and promise that I'll use it for the good of gamer kind. Now, so far in this challenge it's actually been kind of easy. I haven't had too many issues with how the camera works now, and the IGN walkthrough has been okay so far. But for this last encounter, not only did I keep dying on the platforming parts, I kept dying during the last arena. I just couldn't turn fast enough, making my reaction time not as good. I tried using the portals, but because of how slow the camera moves, I kept messing it up and dying. Like, obviously, yes, skill issue, but being on the lowest sensitivity made this way harder than it should have been, even though IGN says it isn't anything more difficult than what you've encountered before. But eventually I do get through the arena and head back to the Fortress of Doom. I get stuck in the floor for a second, and then I go and grab the Ice Bomb. The IGN walkthrough does not talk about any of the Fortress of Doom parts, despite being a sizable chunk of the game, I feel. It doesn't say anything about the Repertorium or the fact that you get your first armor point here. So there's no guide on how to get through this part or where to spend my points. I just do what I think is best for the run and head to the next level. Cultist Base is our next challenge, and this level is definitely one of my favorites. I never thought I'd see the day where we would see snow in a Doom game, and it works so well with the whole level design. The soundtrack accompanying this area is so crunchy, and I love the traps and the cultish vibes that id Software created for this. It's just so good. Another inconsistency in the IGN walkthrough is that it says this first encounter only has one revenant to worry about, even though there is clearly more than one here. It then tells us about the traps in the next area and how good they can be to take out enemies. This is where I think whoever was writing this guide got really lazy, because in this part all it says is hitting the switch at the end of the hall to left of the trap, it will be marked, will trap you in this hallway and begin... What? Begin what? I'm assuming it's talking about the hallway encounter, but this whole sentence just feels so clunky, and it's obvious they didn't even do any proofreading for this guide. It honestly frustrates me, because I'm like imagining someone actually looking up their walkthrough for help, and this is what they get. Lazily written, and not even getting some of the encounters right. There are many parts like this in IGN's walkthrough, and I will likely bring them all up. Such as the fact that we meet a mancubus for the first time and it doesn't bring that up in the guide. I get to the next encounter, flex my skills on them, and then read the guide on how to find the Cultist Base key. I then find some wusses hiding behind some plasma shields, of which IGN says that obviously the plasma rifle is the way to go here. I slog my way through the next platforming section and finally get my hands on the rocket launcher, of which I forgot to take off my gold skin for the run. I didn't want to flex on everyone with my gold skins while I was trying to look like a game journalist noob and all. This next puzzle I was a little concerned about, simply because you have to kind of spin around quickly after you hit this monkey bar to get to the next section, and because I basically have tank controls on right now, I didn't think it'd be easy, but as you can see here, I actually did it first try. But of course, there are worse sections to come. I then hit the rune here, of which IGN still doesn't suggest what to pick in their guide. So I pick air control, cause that's what I normally pick anyways, and move on. Then our first whiplash comes up, and these are incredibly annoying demons to deal with. The guide tells me that I should use my freeze bomb to take them out, and also says that the plasma rifle is good for them. Weird weapon of choice, since the plasma rifle doesn't have hit scan or anything like that. I would have suggested the grenade launcher, to be honest, but whatever, we'll try to do whatever the guide says. I find a weapon mod and pick lock-on rockets, as that's exactly what IGN tells me to do, and I get to the next encounter. IGN says that this arena is going to throw every demon I've fought up until this point at me, and I should remember everything I've learned to defeat the encounter. I honestly thought I was going to have a more difficult time with this arena, but I only died once, so that was nice. I follow the waypoint and stop a random group goon sesh I came across and get a glimpse of my baby, the super shotgun. The best gun in all of gaming history, quote me on that. But before I receive it, I have to do this next encounter, featuring blood covering every inch of the walls, spikes, and fire, making it one of the most metal parts of the game. I actually get through this part pretty easily, but for some reason during Ultra Nightmare runs, this is usually where I die the most. I don't really know why, it just happens. I move on and jump and dash to the garb wall and find a Sentinel crystal, which the guide says nothing about still, so I just pick what I think would be best. Then I get through what normally is not a difficult platforming puzzle, but now is incredibly torturous due to my conditions. Then I get to one of the coolest parts of the game, and honestly, one of my only gripes. I understand why they put this here because of the multiplayer mode, which I actually played a lot of during the height of it, but there's only one of these sections, and honestly I think they should have put more, and created crazier and more difficult arena fights while you play different demons each time. They could have worked it into the level design where you had to get a certain key card that can only be accessed by a demon or something. Maybe even create like a faux stealth section where you had to pretend to be a demon to get somewhere else. Definitely an infantile idea, but I think it could have been really cool. but I understand the original intent, and I don't think it's a bad section whatsoever. After all that infighting, I finally get my super shotgun, and of course, I kill the Revenant, because you have to, every time. Although I'm excited to have the super shotgun, I don't know how much use my meat hook will have with low sensitivity, but nonetheless it still does a ton of damage, so I'm not complaining. IGN does a pretty good job of explaining the next puzzle encounter, and then I move on to the last arena of the level. I actually die here a few times, enough that I had to take like a small 15-minute break and then come back. But eventually I persevered and got onto the barge for the Doom Hunter base level. The Doom Hunter. One of the most badass ways to introduce a boss and then a reoccurring enemy. I stopped at Cultist Base for the night and then did this level a few days later, so I was a little rusty. It didn't help that the guide for this level is incredibly short, suggesting that the majority of this level is all about fighting the Doom Hunter, which just isn't true. This is a full-fledged level with combat arenas and puzzles, and the guide talks very little about these areas. Nonetheless, I get through the first platforming section, grab a weapon mod, IGN doesn't suggest anything but at least points it out, and then I hit another extremely difficult arena. I feel like this is one where a lot of Ultra Nightmare runs end. This area is just so long and throws so many things at you all at once. And honestly, I think it's the hardest encounter of the level. But eventually, I persist, as IGN tells me how to take down a Pinky, and even says that you can kill it instantly with a blood punch. I wasn't expecting them to know that, so I was happy it said that, so I can do it for the rest of the game. I died a lot in this encounter. My main strategy throughout this entire run is really to just stick to the edge of the levels and always be facing the center of the arena. Simply because I can't turn fast at all. So for this encounter, I hit this jumping pad over and over because it gave me a lot of ability to dodge projectiles and see the whole arena. Combined with my air control rune, I did eventually see the light at the end of the tunnel. As I watched the piss demon spin in front of me, I read the guide to see what it says about the platforming sections up ahead. And honestly, I feel like this wording is giving, you'll figure it out. So I do. A little worried about the timing of this, as with my low sensitivity I thought I wouldn't be able to make it to the next areas without the things falling to the abyss, but surprisingly I was able to make it in time. I wonder if id Software took this into account for people putting their sensitivity this low and made sure that there would be just enough extra time for all players. The last thing the guide mentions before going straight to the Doom Hunter fight is the introduction of the Carcass Demon, which is another amazing demon that knows when you're about to glory kill a demon and puts a shield between you and it to stop you. IGN says to use the plasma rifle, of course, and that I do. And then, like I said earlier, IGN just skips all the rest of the level with this sentence and goes straight to the Doom Hunter. Not saying that the next parts aren't, like, super difficult or anything like that, but what if someone is genuinely stuck? I guess they'll have to watch a video or something. Actually, I'm, super curious on, the video that they provide for the Doom Hunter base YouTube video. I want to see what their gameplay's like. Wait a second. This is not IGN. This is just some random dude's YouTube video. Really? They just linked some random guy's playthrough of the game, didn't even play it themselves or like record a video for themselves? That's crazy. Huh. Anyways, as I was saying, the guide doesn't tell you how to do these parts, and unfortunately this one section of the level was a little difficult for me. If I slowly tried to platform over to this area with my handicapped controls, I end up dying quickly because of how tight and small the arena is. So I tried to kill all the demons from afar so I could be left alone as I platform, but I was super low on ammo. Eventually, I did get through it, just a random encounter that was definitely hampered by my sensitivity levels. I go through the rest of the platforming of the level, which I have to remind you is quite a lot, and IGN just skips through all of it despite how complicated a lot of these sections can be, and finally hit the Doom Hunter boss battle. As I watched Bro get surgically connected to his gaming chair, I prepped my mind for one of my favorite parts of the game. I love this fight, and I love the fact that they throw 2 more Doom Hunters at you right after you defeat the first one. It's an amazing way to make you think on your feet, even after the struggle of figuring out how to defeat him the first time. And of course, the music just hits so flippin' hard here. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. IGN obviously suggests using the plasma rifle here to deplete his shield, and then using the lock-on burst with the rocket launcher after the shield is dead. So that's exactly what I do, with relatively little struggle here. I take my time with this boss fight and not get too greedy when I don't need to be, and it got me through this first stage without too many scratches. Once at the second stage, IGN essentially just tells me to keep moving, using the same tactics as before, using the plasma rifle, rocket launcher, and all the platforming. I was able to defeat the Doom Hunters and show the game journalist god next to me that I bested his greatest game reviewer. It embarrassed him so bad that he literally just died in my hands. It was kind of crazy. And with that, the level is over. I get teleported back to my Fortress of Doom, and suddenly the queen of game journalism video chats me onto Discord inside of my living room and tells me to stop ruining the vibe. I ignore her until she says that the last gaming journalist god was taken somewhere not even Google Maps can find. So I decided to go on a side quest. I set my coordinates for the nearest Gulami's Pizza and head on over there.
The UAC asks you to remain calm. Like and subscribe down below to Zoblin, as it will help our cause in keeping you safe from demonic consumption.
Super Gore Nest is our next level, and god is it a good one. When people say that Doom Eternal got too cartoony and stuff, I get so flabbergasted by this idea simply because of the existence of Super Gore Nest. Probably one of the most insanely designed levels of the game. The art direction is just so freaking good. The way they melted the destruction of the city and the birthing of all the demonic organs here is just oozing with love and passion. Anyways, traffic is really bad in the city right now, so I enact some road rage on the citizens and move on to the next location. IGN tells me where I need to go and where I need to jump, until finally I get to this room where all the demons are roiding out on gamer fuel. The guide tells me that I'll need to kill a few demons first, and then some portals will take me to their source of raging gamer fuel power. I go through the one it tells me and wipe it out. I pick up the piss key and continue to move through the level smoothly, as honestly, IGN's walkthrough does a pretty good job with this level, considering that it is probably one of the longer levels of the game. Then of course I come across one of the most infamous parts of the game. Green sludge and fireball walls? I remember when the game first came out and so many manly men got so upset that we got Mario-ass platforming sections with the fireballs. And I know I just made a comparison earlier by talking about how this game was not too cartoony because of the existence of the Super Gore Nest as a level, and here we are looking at these cartoony fireball wall trap thingies, but honestly, I just think it's funny. Especially if you're not good at platforming, they just replicate a version of hell like no other, trying to escape a platforming section. Anyways, we finally acquire the chain gun. IGN says it is perfect for taking out large groups of demons or large demons, so that's what I do. I mow down the next innocent bystander I see. I then find a big-ass computer room with lots of buttons, so my ADHD ass couldn't resist pressing random things. Little did I know I was breaking things, so I left before I got caught. I keep moving on, get my ass beat in this small gory corridor, and get to the part that gives me nightmares whenever I play the Super Gore Nest master level. IGN does a pretty good job of telling me where the buff totem is, so I take that out, easily jump through the fireball walls despite my handicapped nature, do some sightseeing, and keep moving. As said earlier, IGN suddenly started caring about this walkthrough and did a thorough job telling us where to go, so a lot of this is pretty straightforward. I find another computer room and mess it up even more, so badly this time that this place literally starts to implode. IGN tells me that I shouldn't waste any time ripping and tearing, so I just rush past them all as fast as my game journalist eye could. I was actually a little worried about this part because I didn't want my slow camera movements to make all the platforming parts harder than they should be. I was worried I would actually run out of time, but surprisingly, I did it first try. Once again, one of those moments where I think id Software made sure this was actually doable on the lowest sensitivity. And with that level complete, I jump for glee as I'm about to play probably the best level of the entire game. First I do some upgrading, and then I get right to it as I'm feeling incredibly confident with my abilities right now. As said earlier, this is definitely one of the best levels in the game. The tight, concise level structure accompanied with an insanely menacing soundtrack, a track literally called "The Only Thing They Fear Is You," creates an experience that makes you feel like you are going through your own personal hallway fight scene. It's the most badass goddamn level ever created. Honestly, a mastercraft of power fantasy in video games. Anyways, this level, although amazing, is pretty straightforward as well. We go through a couple of encounters, some easy, some a little bit more difficult, but I push through until we meet the Cuber Mancubus for the first time. IGN suggests using the Blood Punch and then Rocket Launcher. I've never been a fan of this method, as I don't like getting close to the Mancubi, but nonetheless we must do what the guide tells us. We recreate gameplay from the classic 2007 Transformers PlayStation 2 game, and then recreate the scene in a level called Turbulence in Call of Duty's Modern Warfare 3, and then the scene from both the original and remake Final Fantasy 7, and then we finally get to the most difficult part of the level. At least, this is what I think is the most difficult part. We'll talk about what most people think is the most difficult part later. But anyways, this arena can be tough. I did die here a couple times. I think any arena with sharp 90-degree turns makes it more difficult for me to stay on top of every demon's position, therefore causing me to die before I can even look at them, but I get through it eventually. I died probably a total of 3 more times here until finally I flippin' lost it and went berserk. My beast mode was powerful, but it wasn't enough. I still died 2 more times. I was only going to be able to get through this if I locked in and became one with the game journalist inside of me. I couldn't let the nerfs get the better of me, until finally I command kill all, and I finally beat it. As my reward for getting through that arduous experience, I got to shoot a big fucking gun and go for some more sightseeing until I get interrupted by another big encounter and purple sludge! I go say hello to my very introverted best crocodile bud, go through some sewers, and find a second big fucking gun! And with that, this hallway fight scene is almost done. We learn how to quick switch, as I haven't been doing it until now when the tutorial shows me. At least I've been trying not to. I go through a small roadblock, go up an elevator, and finally, we've arrived to the part we've all been waiting for.
Sword, like the marauder, and like it was bullshit, and I never went back.
When Doom Eternal came out, those things fucking pissed me off. I'll stand by it to this day. Those are badly designed enemies. I understand like skill issue. Those are just badly designed enemies.
I don't know. I'm just playing Doom. I'm just trying to fucking run and shoot. Like, what the fuck?
There's a full video on YouTube from a guy explaining why they are good enemies and how people who reviewed the game made a lot of mistakes about the encounter with them.
Sure, but like, I'm sure I can find a YouTube video on why like some horrendous historic thing was good.
Bad game design, if that.
But yeah, what BK's saying, if that many people...
Okay, obviously this is an incredibly old topic, long discussed, and the Marauder is very different now compared to how he was in the base game. Still a menace, mind you, but the sheer amount of people calling the Marauder bad is probably part of the reason why you can barely trust game journalists anymore. Because the game quite literally tells you how to deal with them, and once you learn his shtick, he just becomes another chess piece that you have to think about a little bit differently on the field. I am baffled by the idea of people saying that this dude ruined the game for them. I also think, do any of them play any sort of Souls-like game? There are plenty of enemies that are way more difficult than the Marauder, and you don't see people saying that Elden Ring is too hard. Oh wait. Anyways, point is, I don't understand why this one mini-boss got so many people worked up. I'm assuming it was probably all the Doom 2016 dick writers that somehow got up to this point in the game without thinking, and then when the game suddenly starts making you think, you start to hate it. I guess I get it. You go in for a fun ride, shoot and jump around. That's probably how it feels on the I'm too young to die difficulty, but I guess I just never experienced that shock of, whoa, this game is suddenly very difficult because of this one guy. Maybe it makes me sound like a try-hard, sweaty, unemployed gamer, but I just don't get it, man, for real. And as you can see here, I wiped out the Marauder first try, despite the fact that I'm playing on a base controller, lowest sensitivity possible, on Nightmare, and following the IGN guide, which, honestly, they give you some pretty good tips on how to beat him. They say use the super shotgun when his green eyes pop, then quickly switch to the ballista to get that extra damage in. So yeah, of course this method works. And it is all stuff the game basically tells you already. You should already know that you have a button that lets you quickly switch your weapon to the previous one. The game tells you that anytime you shoot at him, he will block. So like, why are we getting clips like this? I just don't get it, man. Anyways, we find a dude who got his Discord chats leaked, and he tells us where we can find the last game journalist god. By doxing them and giving me their IP address, all I gotta do is put it in my Google Maps and find him in his hidey hole, which brings us to Mars Core. Oh, this level is cool. Just so goddamn cool. You can absolutely tell that the developers had a lot of fun making this level. I feel like it's both a love letter and a deconstruction of Mars as a whole when it comes to Doom. Since Mars is always a key factor to Doom, this just feels like your obligatory Mars section, but they made it so fun. They showcase Doomslayer's raw aura, give you the BFG, and you do some of the most badass things in this level, as we all know. So badass that this level I feel became the most memed one at launch, just because people loved it so much. As I start the level, this guy attempts to stop me, but I aura farmed too hard, so he just lets me take his belongings and leave. And I set my sights on my goal, the BFG 10,000, the biggest frickin' gun ever. If I wanted it though, I need to barge my way through every demon in this space station. I meet a Baron of Hell for the first time, one of my favorite demon designs, but IGN doesn't mention him or give me any tips on how to beat him, so I just give him the good old 1-2 combo. However, during the next big encounter, IGN mentions the Pain Elemental showing up for the first time. It says I should use the ballista as it is good for flying enemies, which is true. Also mentions the return of the Doom Hunter as a recurring enemy. It refreshes me on how to beat him, and then we move on. We go through a couple platforming sections and go up this ladder, where more non-believers of the cause try to stop me from ascending to gamer godhood by becoming a good game journalist. But they know it is of no use. my gamer stench is far too rank, so they let me pass by them and steal more of their stuff. With this BFG 9000, it brings me one step closer to the cookout I'm so desperately desiring to go to. But first, I gotta wake them up. I aim this giant bonk machine at them and fire away to my heart's content, causing every player down at Mars to go straight back to the lobby. After the fact, I destroy any remaining evidence that I was here by eliminating the witnesses to plasmic miasma. Then I gleefully jump about through the mass destruction I caused to everyone's families as I get to an encounter featuring a group of brave souls who try to stop my path of terrorism. But unfortunately for them, their efforts were futile. Only thing they changed was the numbers to the casualty statistics for Mars. My next step was to blast myself closer to the surface of Mars, and I found the perfect device to do so. I catapult myself forward, crashing through an innocent bystander's home, kill everyone inside, and move to a big open area requiring a bit of platforming. IGN helped me figure all this out pretty alright. They weren't too descriptive, which I felt they kinda needed to be since this area can be kinda confusing for first timers. But luckily for me, my low camera movements did not ruin the experience too bad. It was a tad difficult, but I got through it. Next is this big ol' encounter, which IGN sort of recommends using the BFG here by mentioning the ammo, so that's what I do. Then talks about the pain elemental in the next room, and tells me that the ice bomb is really good on this one, giving me time to use the ballista. But funnily enough, it was empowered for the first time, so it didn't work as well as it should have. Second time's the charm though, and I move on. The next platforming section, IGN offers no help this time. Basically tells you, just look at your map, you dummy. So, yeah. Before I go into the last escape pod, making it so nobody else can survive this catastrophe I've inflicted on them, I take one last sightsee and appreciate everything good in my life that I just took away from all those poor innocent souls, and take my leave. Once I land, I realize why they do so many cookouts down here. The amount of crazy ass fire spirals they got going on can probably cook a bird in no time flat. I get a little too excited about this idea and came to the conclusion that I should move on. Sentinel Prime is our next level, and a rather short one as it is only a boss fight and some cutscenes. I meet up with some old friends back in the 2016 multiplayer days and move on to the giant arena looking building, until suddenly I'm forcefully fed a psychic vision that makes me remember my past, but with a piss filter on it. Once again, the game journalist queen tries to convince me that I shouldn't continue this challenge, as the threat I'm about to fight will kick my ass, no matter how prepared I am. I, of course, ignore her and find my way to the last game journalist god. He tries to shoo me away, but my mission isn't done yet. He then sicks the reviewer who gave Doom Eternal a 60 on Metacritic to try to take me down. Little does he know, I am always prepared to defend this masterpiece of a game. We start the fight. IGN says that this boss fight is very similar to a marauder fight. Look for the green eyes to stun him. They tell me to use the super shotgun, and once he is staggered, use the lock-on rocket launcher mod. And I don't know. I feel like it really wasn't working. I felt like just doing the glory kill animation after hitting him does more damage, but maybe I'm just insane. Whenever I played Eternal, I never booted up Sentinel Prime as a level. It'd always be like a master level or something. So I never developed a strategy for this guy. I tried doing IGN's tip, but I really didn't know if it was working too well or not. But I did get to the second phase pretty quickly. Now this is where I lost a couple brain cells or something. I kept dying. I think just the combination of the stage being a small circle with my low sensitivity, it made my reaction time just not as good. And with how the targeting works on his flails, I just couldn't get away in time. Death after death, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get past this, to be honest. I died here way more times than I have in any other previous sections, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing wrong or what I could have done better. I really tried to listen to what IGN was telling me, but it just wasn't working. The whole shotgun to rocket launcher combo was not fast enough for me to get out of the way when he was not stunned anymore. So, as you just saw in the clip I just showed you, I resorted to using my normal quick switching loop on a controller. It outputs so much more damage than just trying to wait for him to get staggered and waiting for the lock-on to connect. Maybe I needed to have my lock-on upgraded more to make it faster, maybe mine was just going too slow, but I felt IGN made this guide for this boss way too vague in one note. No other tips other than, if you're good at dodging, you can still shoot him for more damage, which is like, yeah, okay, duh. But, as you can see, I did eventually beat him. Despite my awful camera speeds and shit guide, I was able to beat him. Alas, I give the last game journalist god my condolences, and I leave the server before everyone starts to go aggro on me. As I get back home, the game journalist queen told my landlord that I ditched the place while I was gone. So they shut off my power and I got ambushed by IGN's pawns. Once that slight inconvenience was dealt with, I had to use the one thing that would help me take down the game journalist queen to get power back in my place. I still needed another version of the Crucible to pass my destiny. So I set my Google Maps to the last place I remember leaving one, Taras Nabad. At this point in the game, I feel we are in Act 3. Everything is only going to get harder from here. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared of what was to come. IGN tells me to open up the first door on the level, and then suddenly another marauder shows up. They refresh me on how to beat him, so I do so. Then we get to an interesting part of the guide. It describes the next demon encounter, talking about how we see buffed demons, but no buff totem. And the reason being is because of this bastard right here. They tell us that we absolutely need to focus him first, because he will continue to spawn demons. The first time I died because I got way too overwhelmed. I didn't get to him fast enough before he spawned in demons, but I got him the second time. I take a little dip in the pool real quick. IGN does an alright job telling me how to do the puzzle inside of here. I learn more about my piss-filled past, then get to a part in the game where I believe is the only time that IGN goes out of their way to make sure you know that this next encounter is extremely difficult. It tells me exactly which demons I should focus first, such as the Cyber Mancubus. Take out as many of the smaller demons as possible before killing the Pain Elemental, because as soon as I do, a Doom Hunter will spawn. This is the first time in the entire guide that IGN has actually talked about strategy and how to defeat a specific encounter, other than the first Marauder and maybe the Archvile earlier, but otherwise they go way into detail here, more so than the others. My theory is that IGN was probably cruising through the game on Hurt Me Plenty. Maybe they weren't. I could be giving them too much credit here, I don't know. And once they got to this section, it really threw them off for some reason. And they probably died here more than the rest of the game. To be fair, this arena is weird and tricky. Not your average Doom arena. There's a lot of random upper areas with weird ways to get to them, and they aren't necessarily open upper areas. They have columns that make you have to move around them to get to any demons that spawn up there, and with how tight and sporadic the bottom area is, you don't have much wiggle room to move other than the jump pad. So I get it. It is a little weird, but I don't think it gave me much trouble. Once we are done with that nonsense, we go through another cute little water puzzle. IGN holds my hand through the whole way until we get to another demon encounter that is arguably much harder than the previous encounter. You have Hell Knights, a Baron of Hell, Whiplashes, Carcasses, Prowlers, and of course an Archvile at the end of it. And IGN barely mentions it, just says, hey, by the way, there's an Archvile here. I died once here during this encounter, and it was so dumb that it just made me use the BFG afterwards. After that, I go pick up the hilt to my horny jail bonk blade from the previous degenerate I had to slay for streaking in the middle of Taras Nabad, and get to the next encounter, which IGN says there is a marauder. Funnily enough, I died twice in the same exact way in the very beginning of this encounter, because I kept trying to do IGN's tip on how to kill a cyber mancubus first, which is to blood punch them first, then fire away. I do this twice in a row in the very beginning, and I die instantly both times. Probably a skill issue, but I don't like how IGN kills the cyber mankeys. I'm sorry. Otherwise, despite the arena actually giving me a tad bit of trouble here because of its tight rectangular shape, making it harder for me to turn fast on the 90-degree sharp angles, I did get through it. I severely mess up this jump twice in a row as well. Deal with this encounter, go up in the elevator, hit another small encounter, nothing too difficult, just has some coca demons, pain elemental, and a pinky. And once that is over, we do another puzzle door and a water puzzle. And finally, we receive a giant button cell battery for our laser toy sword and get to playing with it. IGN says it can kill every single demon in one shot, except for marauders, which is technically true, but we won't get into that. They suggest using it for archviles, and that I do. I get through the last encounter quickly thanks to my new toy and move on to the next level. Alright, so here we are. Truly the last stretch of the game with both Nekravols. I'm gonna be real. I took like a 2-week break because I was so worried that I'd get stuck during these parts because they throw everything they can at you. But eventually I did come back to the challenge. I locked the fuck in and booted up the game. IGN says this is the last time we are on the Fortress of Doom, so we will not be coming back. So I get all the upgrades that I can and get out of there. I goddamn love the art direction of these two levels. Every single inch of this level was created with the most metal ideas ever. The lava coming out of the Titan's eyes, the cubes of fused together flesh corpses begging for their lives, Samuel Hayden explaining how the whole Argent Energy hell process goes. It's just too damn good. I clear out the front gate, kill a couple more demons with ease, double check that I'm still on the nightmare difficulty because, like I said, I took a 2-week break and I'm rushing through this like nothing. Then get to the area where we meet our first cyber demon / tyrant, which IGN fails to mention, of course. I go down the badass pit, do a little puzzle, and then watch as I get carried in a cage over one of the most awesome sights in the game, but I missed half of it because I wasn't looking at it. I was looking at the IGN guide. Then we get to a pseudo boss fight. IGN suggests using the rocket launcher or the plasma rifle, which are good options, but I always use the chain gun shield with these parts, but yeah. We get through that, and guess what? The IGN guide pretty much just stops. It says, just follow the marker and kill any demons in your way. It doesn't talk about any of the platforming sections or where to go. It doesn't talk about the crushing spike puzzles, which can be confusing to new players, I feel. It technically brings up the Marauder in this level, but not in the right way. It just goes straight to the last encounter of the game. What's even worse is that IGN says that this encounter will end with a Marauder, which it doesn't. We fight a Marauder earlier, but not in this encounter. It ends with 2 Doom Hunters. It mentions that there is a Crucible pickup in the middle of the room, but then it says that you could use it on the Marauder. That isn't even in this encounter. But earlier, IGN said you can't use the Crucible on the Marauder. So why are you saying that you can now all of a sudden? What the hell, IGN? Why did you get so lazy halfway through the level and then mess up where the Marauders show up? And like, I'm not saying that the puzzles are that hard in this level, but when I'm brain dead replaying through these levels, sometimes I get stuck and I go, wait, where do I need to go? Because there are some areas in this level that are definitely a little tricky, but IGN talks about none of it. It's kind of crazy. Anyways, it doesn't matter, it's just a game, and I move on to the second part of Nekravol. Just as cool as the first part, of course. We get through the beginning encounter and puzzle, and reach the next encounter, which for some reason IGN brings up. They say that it is nothing crazy, just a revenant and a carcass. I'm not sure why they bring up this encounter and not others. It's like the guy writing it realized he was being lazy and decided to throw this tiny encounter in as if it was something. I don't know. Then we get to the real encounter, as IGN basically calls it, and we get through it with great ease despite my handicaps. Playing the game like an elderly old woman slowly trying to turn around and unravel herself from her dog's leash after they surrounded and encircled her like 4 times has steeled my resolve and my patience. I honestly think this made me a slightly better doomer. The amount of times I died simply because of bad positioning, putting myself in a corner and not being able to turn around fast enough, made me have a greater appreciation with some of the arenas and where certain walls and tunnels were placed. Obviously, you have to be hyper aware while playing this game, especially during a UN run, but this has created a different awareness in me, and it's made me realize I can definitely be the ultimate game journalist. I just have to get through these last few hurdles. I watched some Lost Souls goon under some tattered blankets, and then hit an encounter that not only has an archvile, but also a marauder, of which IGN doesn't mention either of them, surprisingly. Then go through my least favorite platforming section in the game. I go up a very long elevator ride as Samuel Hayden yaps in chat, then struggle my way through this weird circular section of the game, until I meet the Calibus fight part 2, which is much easier as I don't have platformings melting underneath my in lava, and then I get to the last encounter of the level. As I rock out to one of the best tracks in the game, IGN tells me to clear out the demons here and be careful, as there are several gaps in this part and they don't want me to fall and take more damage. Then I punch the restraints on these titans and let them off to do whatever horrible things they did to deserve to be chained up, and jump through the portal to Urdak. Oh boy, this level is a doozy. Once again, I have to give credit to the art designers of this damn game. Urdak is essentially Doom's version of heaven, if you can or want to call it that. I love the color palette of this level, with the white, gold, and deep red lining the outside of the floating technological structures, while the inside of many you get deep flesh-colored interiors resembling the artificially made veins that create everything here. The more you go through this level, the more you discover that everything that the makers are is completely forged, with no real life behind it all, which makes their mission of harvesting hell energy all the more interesting. There are just so many different interesting textures and areas in this level that blow me away every time, and makes me appreciate how far Doom has come. Anyways, as you see, IGN is telling me where to go with these jump boosts, and it leads me to this beautiful area with red colored trees lining these stairs, and you get to see this black, almost 3D printed like interior design on the walls, showcasing again how artificial and computerized this world is. Once through the door, I meet the queen of game journalism and her grifters, as she tries to use the hearts of all gamers to control a giant, hellish beast, Kotaku. I insert the Gooner toy that an old friend gave me, straight into the mind of this beast, flashing degenerate Gooner content into his cranium. This sends him into a blind fury, wanting to destroy it all at its core. Him leaving Urdak makes it so that IGN can't control it anymore, but now I'm in trouble. I get flung into a combat encounter, die once because I kept missing the head of this maker drone, and do a few different platforming sections in a row that IGN doesn't care to bring up, and then get to another combat encounter with a buff totem. Luckily, IGN tells me where the buff totem is here, I get through it, go outside and get told that I need to align these big ass rings to make a portal to get me home. So I jump to the control panel for the first one, do this encounter that ends with a marauder, and IGN says that this encounter will actually be the hardest one we'll face of the entire level because of the marauder, which I definitely disagree with, but that's okay. I activate the first ring and jump over to the next encounter that IGN skips over. I overcome this arena, get to the next one that IGN does talk about, and there's a buff totem here that I feel the guy does a horrible job of explaining where it is. It just says it's underneath this bridge, and I guess I would consider it a bridge, but I don't know, I feel like they explained the other buff totems positions much better. They just got lazy with this one. I defeat these demons, then run into more demons. They throw themselves at me with even more ferocity as I get closer to their precious queen. I do another platforming section that IGN ignores in their walkthrough, and then I hit another horde of demons. They know this challenge's success is imminent. We go through another platforming section that IGN ignores, and then activate the last ring for the portal, opening up a portal to Earth. Then get to this really awesome, beautiful, and creepy area with a maker showcasing its true form, and swimming underneath it reveals what we need to smash to get us further through the level. And of course, IGN doesn't mention this part at all. And then finally, we get to the epic showdown, the one we've all been waiting for. Here it is. With the queen of game journalism finally showing herself, personally challenging me to find out who can really be the best game journalist. I steel my resolve, prep my base Xbox controller, and remind myself what I'm fighting for. I ignore her as I research her own guide on how to defeat her. IGN says I need to use the lock-on rockets on her, which is great news because if they tried to tell me any other way to defeat her, I would be so upset, as this is the definitive way to do it. They do a really good job telling me how the more damage I do to her, the more the ground gets covered in fire, and tells me to treat this whole part as the floor is lava situation. It does recommend the slowdown rune to help me aim at the drones, and I do try it, but I felt like it actually didn't help me because my camera speed is still slow, so in reality, now everything is in slow motion, not just the demons, but it didn't matter. I go through all 7 stages in a matter of minutes and overpowered the great Imagine Games network. She starts geeking hardcore, telling me that I screwed everything up, made it so that they couldn't make mediocre game reviews anymore and be bad at them too. I leave IGN to their demise, and I move on to my very last challenge, the very place I started this long and taxing journey. Alright everyone, we are finally at the last level of the game, and definitely the hardest besides the master levels and the DLCs. This level is very fun. Running and jumping between buildings, chasing after the Icon of Sin is so intense, and you experience some of the greatest arenas that this game has to offer. After all the struggling, the building of patience and resolve, hating my Xbox controller because it isn't a PS5 controller or a mouse and keyboard, and getting frustrated with the IGN guide, I still got to the last level of the game. Despite how slow my camera moves, I still got through all of the platforming sections and arenas up until this point. Right now is the true test to see if I can live up to the expectations of what a real game journalist should be. Now that IGN is down, I can prove to everyone that I deserve to play video games for money like they do, and that I'll do it better than them. So let's get to it then. The IGN guide tells me that this level will throw every demon I've faced in the campaign at me, and that at the end of this encounter, a tyrant will pop up and try to stop me. Weirdly enough, IGN says that using the plasma rifle on his arm cannon will hurt him more than any other weapon. They also say the lock-on rocket launcher, of course, but the plasma gun? They never even mentioned when tyrants showed up before in previous encounters. This is technically the first time they bring up the tyrants in their entire walkthrough, and they suggest using the plasma rifle on his arm cannon? So, I did, and it didn't do anything. I thought maybe in my hundreds of hours in Doom that I missed the fact that maybe his arm cannon overheats or something with the plasma cannon, but it definitely doesn't. So, I'm not really sure why IGN suggests this at all. Then it tells me that this encounter ends with a Doom Hunter, which is correct. I dispatch of him accordingly and move on. IGN does their best telling me how to get through these next sections, although a lot of them are pretty straightforward, so I'll give them that. I continue, and then I watch this woman yell at me to get myself excited and on the edge a little bit, and get to a big demon encounter with several layers to it, and a buff totem. IGN tells me exactly where it is, so I destroy it and lay waste to the rest of the demons that dare stand in my way. I fight a marauder encounter that IGN skips, and do another multi-layered long demon encounter, of which IGN says is my last gauntlet, ending with the worst demon of them all, the marauder, as IGN says. But, not to worry, IGN's guide has done a wonderful job of teaching me how to dispatch marauders quickly. Not the flashiest way, but it gets the job done. And that's when we get to the last part of the game, my final challenge. I watch as this massive gaming website titan climbs up the side of this building, angrily destroying everything in its path. I know I caused this disruption in it. I know that I was the one to stir the waters, but I had to. I had no choice. This is my chance to prove that game journalists can be better than what they are now. I'm playing this damn game on its hardest difficulty, lowest sensitivity, base Xbox controller, and with their own damn guides. If I can get this far and completely enjoy the game and competently, if I can do this, so can they, okay? So can these damn game journalists. They can be better, and I'm going to show them one last time. IGN tells me to use the chain gun primarily for this fight. Aim for the arms, since they are the hardest to hit, and then head and chest. They say that there is plenty of BFG ammo around here, so I should use it for the chest, since it is easier to hit. They recommend using the combat shotgun if I get close enough as well. Lastly, they bring up the fact that there are plenty of crucible pickups, and I should use them whenever I feel overwhelmed with big demons, as they do spawn often here. This is all very good advice coming from IGN, and I do my best to follow it to a T for the first stage, and honestly, it goes swimmingly. I take out all 8 of his armor pieces and move on to the next phase. The second phase is very similar, but less vertical. And that makes it harder for me especially, as since it becomes less of a shoot in one direction and hit the body kind of thing, it becomes more of a he comes at you in 4 different directions, so now I have to turn type of thing. This phase I had a lot of issues with how the map is set up and how little health pickups there are, and the amount of heavy to super heavy demons that get spawned in. I feel like there is a lot of RNG here that can make or break this fight. Sometimes he'll just spawn in a bunch of prowlers, but sometimes he'll spawn in a bunch of cyber mancubuses, making the whole area a Nickelodeon slime fest on the ground. I had to be really patient with all of this. If I made one wrong move, I would die almost instantly. I tried using the BFG at times, but I couldn't really aim as well with the low sensitivity, so I felt like it just wasn't really an option for me as often. So I just kept trying to use the chain gun and other weapons and surviving for as long as I could in that hell that I put myself in. The worst part about all of this is during my very first attempt, where I had collected 3 random extra lives on the way here, I got so goddamn close to beating it in one try. But alas, I lost all of my extra lives and I died horrifically. To a Mencubus with perfect accuracy, of course. I was too brash, trying to finish them off for the extra health, and with that severe mistake, it led down a long, long road of misery. Almost every attempt afterwards, I didn't get nearly as far, as I would die after a few short minutes. I was losing my grip, all the time and energy I put into this challenge, essentially relearning how to crawl, walk, and run in Doom. I felt all of that progress was eliminated, because I just kept messing up, getting overwhelmed. My nerfs were finally getting the better of me. Every demon spawn was the worst one they could be. I was losing so bad that the goddamn Sentinel armor kept popping up, and god damn it do I hate it when that pops up. But I just kept going. I knew that I couldn't give up. It was getting late at night too. I had to work the next morning, but I knew I couldn't stop. Even though I kept messing up. And even when I got really, really close and died again, I kept going. Because a true gamer always rises up against adversity. A true gamer will rise to the challenge. And if they can't, they'll own up to it. And I'm here to prove one thing and one thing only. I have restricted this game to the best of my ability, mimicking all the different bad game journalists of my time. And with this footage, I will prove that you can still beat one of the most difficult games there is by just persevering. So yeah, that's what I did. I just kept going. If I'm going to do this full time, be paid to play video games, I gotta finish it. I have to do my duty and finish this game so I can show every single game journalist that it is possible to be good at what you do, to be good at the living you got yourself. IGN, Polygon, Kotaku, GameSpot, Games Radar, PC Gamer, all of them. Watch as I overcome this great challenge. Overcome it like the geriatric, corner-hugging, quick-switching snail that I've become as I played this challenge. Watch me beat the final boss to Doom Eternal's campaign. And with that, our challenge is finally over. I have defeated Doom Eternal on Nightmare with a base Xbox controller with the lowest sensitivity possible and with the IGN guide. I beat Doom Eternal as a game journalist. So yeah, hopefully this proves that I deserve to be instantly hired as a game journalist so that I can play games and do it full time, right? All joking aside though, this was very fun for me to do, and I want to thank everyone who has stuck through this video until the very end. I absolutely know I was being cringed throughout the whole video. I was just genuinely having so much fun doing this challenge. My very first challenge video. And obviously it got really long, but I wanted to get it out before Doom to Dark Ages came out, of course, and I'm glad I did. But once again, thank you all who have watched up until this point. And thank you to all the developers who made this game happen. And Hugo Martin for being so passionate about Doom, keeping it alive and well. thank you for giving us a product that kept us awake during the dark ages of 2020, giving us a reason to keep persevering, to keep going despite the challenges ahead. This video absolutely became a love letter to one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm not surprised by it. I just couldn't help but gush and love on several parts of this game, and id Software deserves every bit of support they've gotten. My final thoughts: IGN's walkthrough was fine, most times, but really bad at integral moments. So many times they were just plain lazy, getting encounters wrong, skipping puzzles and platforming sections, giving weird advice, and barely making a guide to follow. All in all, lazy. I didn't realize how lazy they'd be, to be honest. It goes to show that they likely just speed ran the game and barely put effort into getting all the details right. There were moments in the guide that wouldn't help a single soul if they were stuck, especially when they would just forget to finish writing a section. Anyways, if you liked this video in any form and was able to deal with the cringe jokes and the earnest, nerdy passion for Doom, give the video a thumbs up, why don't you? Maybe subscribe? No pressure, of course. I'm planning on making more content soon. I want to get more confident in my voice as a passionate fan, so if there are other challenge videos you think would be fun but wouldn't want to do yourself that are Doom related or maybe something else, then maybe I'll give it a try. If you feel so inclined to suggest and comment one, I would be very appreciative. But anyways, this is goodbye. Till next time.